I'm happy to be here tonight with my own pastor, Michelle Wong from Fox Valley Presbyterian Church. She is our associate pastor for discipleship, as well as Cindy Michelasi, who is a song leader and rabbinic aide and worship leader for Jewish groups who do not have a rabbi in the western suburbs area. So she covers from Lombard all the way out to Aurora and Rockford areas, as well as Haroon Qureshi from the Islamic Center of King County, where he heads up interfaith outreach in the community. So thank you all for joining me tonight to talk about our faith practice during this pandemic.
Yep, thank you for having us.
Thank you, Martha.
Good to be here.
Thanks. So worship for most faith practices looks like a lot of people getting together at least weekly. And that is obviously something that cannot happen right now safely. So we've all made adjustments to our faith practice in different ways. And it's probably looking a bit different for everybody, depending on what works best for our different faith communities. So I'd say, obviously even people who don't regularly practice faith know what worship looks like and know that, that normally looks like a lot of people together, close together, and everything is changing right now. I was looking at a research study, and this was interesting. I think it was the Pew Research firm put out a study and found that almost the same percentage of Americans are continuing to participate in practicing their faith during the pandemic. I think they said about 27% have worshiped remotely in the last 7 days, with 4% still worshiping in person. And they said that doesn't really look all that different participation-wise from normal times. So I'm curious to hear from each of you what this new remote style of worshiping and gathering looks like for your different faith communities. So if anybody wants to jump in, go ahead.
Sure, I'll start. So for us, this is kind of an odd time because we're in the middle of Ramadan right now, actually towards the end of Ramadan, which is our month of fasting. And generally during Ramadan, every evening, we get together for evening prayers, and we break our fast generally with friends and family members. And at the mosque, we tend to hold community iftars, which is our breaking of the fast. Usually every weekend. We sometimes have 2, maybe 3 times on the weekend we'll do it. But obviously none of that's happening, so we don't have the community iftars. We can't gather privately to break our fast with friends and family, and we don't meet for our evening prayers, and so none of that's happening right now. But in Islam, we can pray on our own at home. So we can still continue with our prayers normally, and we can pray our evening prayers and the extra prayers at home as well without having to be in congregation. So we're allowed to continue that way. But it's led us to be more creative, I guess, in ways to do the other activities, such as the breaking of fast. So what we've done, my family and I at least, and some others that we know of, is we just prepare meals for everyone, and it's usually my job, but to go around and delivering it to all our friends in time to break their fast. And so we've been doing that, and they've been doing that in turn as well. So it's like I still try to keep everything going, keep the festivities going, keep the community aspect of it going, while still working within these confines. And prayers continue normally because we can pray at home. We don't necessarily need to be in congregation to pray, but it's a big part of, especially in Ramadan, the belief that we pray in congregation. So that's being impacted a little bit, but hopefully not much.
What about educational aspects of your faith?
Yeah, so we've been doing online Quran studies, and for the children, the youth, we continue with online Islamic education classes and again, trying to be creative for the kids as well. So like we held an arts and craft fair activity for the kids that we gave an assignment to do, and then we got together online and shared it with everyone so they can feel, part of the community, and everyone got to praise their work. And we also did some fundraising in terms of like for the mosque. The kids did a bake sale online, so donate $25 and we'll send you some cookies or some savory items as well in time for iftar to break your fast with. And so they did that as well. And then from a community as a whole, with the pandemic, we've been trying to support all the other faith groups as well. So we've worked with a couple of faith groups in distributing foods to the elderly, senior people who can't get out, especially in the beginning when things were really unsure and things were still kind of up in the air. We stepped up and tried to help in that aspect as well.
That's wonderful. And what about the other faiths represented here? What is your worship looking like these days?
Well, the Jewish community actually canceled in-person services even before the stay-at-home order came down. We stopped meeting in person early in March. And so of the 4 congregations that I'm currently working for, congregation at Chaim in Lombard normally does a streaming of their services through their YouTube channel on Friday nights anyway, and then sometimes on Saturday mornings for a bar bat mitzvah service. So we had a streaming service, and then when it started to look really serious, Rabbi Koznowski, who is our senior rabbi there, said, I think it's time to shut down and we have to come up with something else. And the building was closed and we haven't been back since. And that was the second week in March.
Oh, wow.
And so I think it became apparent that having services via streaming still entailed at least she and myself and one other person going into the building, which we felt was not the best idea, and we should try to do it remotely. So now we've gone to the Zoom platform, and it is a lot more participatory, more interactive, because we can have everybody come in and people can take parts. They can have honors, they can have readings, and so forth. And so I think people really seem to like that platform because it is participatory. We even have a little, after services, we usually have a reception called the Oneg. So what we've been doing is having, before services start, a pre-Oneg. Oneg means joy. So we're celebrating the joy in the Sabbath. And it gives people an opportunity to just talk to each other. And how you doing? Do you have a good week? How's everybody? Oh, I see you. How's your dog there? I mean, talk back and forth and connect a little bit before we get down to the business of prayer. So that's how services are going for us right now.
Great.
Well, when the stay-at-home order was put into place for the Presbyterians, we were right in the middle of Lent. And so we had to figure out how do we continue as much as what we were doing in this new normal situation. Communal worship is central for us. And so we had to figure out, as a pastoral staff, how we're going to continue to give a sense of community and the sense that we are here worshiping together, but actually, not in a physical space together. So like some of what you had said, we had already had an online streaming service for those of our members who go to Florida for the winter, and for, those who can't be at worship on Sundays due to, extenuating circumstances. So Easter, we were holding our breath for how Easter was going to be received. And we had recorded the special music that usually takes place. And then one of our pastors put it all together, edited it together, and then we put it out there on our website. as this has continued on, people have been taking things in stride, but I think at this point, people are a little weary about, the length of the stay-at-home order. But no one is saying that we should, break the stay-at-home order and congregate. So what we've done, like the Jewish community, is we've added a component at the end of worship where we gather and share our group. We lament the situation, the circumstances, and what is most heartbreaking are those circumstances where your family member gets ill, not because of COVID, but for some other reason, and you can't be at the hospital caring for them. So that gives a time for, communal prayer. We do some of our worship services recorded, and then in the middle of this, we realized we all miss seeing each other's faces. So we went live on Zoom on Sunday. And that was a tremendous joy to see everyone's faces and just to get to see how everyone is doing during this time. So that's what we anticipate, is that we will continue to have this remote platform as our primary way of gathering together and worshiping together. And we know that when we get back together, we're not going to be able to sing communally. And that's a really hard reality too, because we love to get together, and it's hard to imagine worship without singing. So the great thing about this platform is that we have been able to connect live with our members throughout the country, and be able to, get updates about their well-being. So.
Mm-hmm. So you touched a little bit on my next question, which is, what, if any, benefits have you found during this experience, this new experience of pandemic style faith practice? And then what drawbacks have there been? I think some of you touched on a few of those, but thinking about, maybe the drawbacks along with that, how might we as people of faith overcome those drawbacks that we're seeing with this new style of worship?
Well, it's really given an opportunity for us pastors, clergy persons, to have to be creative and think very out of the box. And so we have, our director of Christian education, he has, taken this time to really incorporate our youth into the worship services. And that's been wonderful to see their participation and their involvement. It's also brought to light and to the surface how much we enjoy being together as a church family, and and how much we appreciate our community of faith. So that's been a huge benefit. And for me personally, I've realized, how important and how much I yearn for that communal time together. Yeah.
Yeah. What about Haroon or Cindy? Do you see any very specific benefits in your new style of practicing your faith, or drawbacks that have been overcome, or that we could, maybe overcome as people of faith?
Well, the drawbacks certainly, I guess I'll cover those first. That this challenge of conquering the learning curve with using a lot of this technology has certainly been a drawback for some of us, and that's been a real challenge. So not all of us are that tech savvy, and it kind of puts us in a position that we've got to be on the fast track to trying to get with the 21st century and learn this technology like right now, like yesterday. So which has been challenging for me. I'm kind of technologically challenged, but I'm married to an electrical engineer who is a software designer, and he helps me a lot. So that's been very helpful. it's also for other people not being able to access the technology, it's frustrating for them, so that trying to do things online and virtually, not everybody is able to access that as well. Not everyone's tech savvy, so that's a drawback too. It can be a frustrating challenge. We are sometimes limited by the capabilities of the technology. We've learned about the Zoom bombers. We were actually victimized by the Zoom bombers.
Oh.
It's something that you have to be aware of, and then you've got to shift. Well, okay, now we can't put our links to our services up online. It's got to be done in a private email, or we'll
Right.
get Zoom bombed.
Mm-hmm.
And just the basic drawback of the lack of human contact interaction
Mm-hmm.
is painful, I think, in some ways. But to the benefits, I would say that it gives us an opportunity to offer programming that we might not have before, because like Michelle said, you have to be creative, and we start getting ideas for things that maybe we didn't think of before. So we get an opportunity to offer something new to our people. We might be able to reach a wider audience than, because people don't have to drive, and
Right.
a lot of our membership lives very far away. And so
Mm-hmm.
to just walk into your bedroom and get on your computer and suddenly you're there, that's a benefit, because you didn't have to drive a half an hour or whatever it is.
Right.
So I like that. And also, people might, because of that, they might attend programs that they didn't think that they would attend before. Like, oh, if I had to drive to that, I wouldn't do that. But since I just have to go and turn on my computer, maybe I'll see what that's about. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a definite benefit as well.
I like those thoughts.
Yeah, we've pretty much seen the same benefits and drawbacks with our community. Definitely benefits would be like like you were saying about participation being more now. So people are definitely, you see more people participating in all these online events because it's just a click of the button and you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And and since everything else is canceled, there's no conflicts going on. So
Mm-hmm.
so we've seen a lot of benefits in that area. We've seen benefits in terms of like all the scholars throughout the country and the world. Actually, they seem to be putting a lot more material online for us to use, and so and that's more readily available to us now,
Mm-hmm.
from live sessions to just the recorded sessions. There's a lot more available online for us to use, especially during this period, this month of Ramadan. When and the other benefit is, in a way, it's helped us focus more on our faith by being isolated, because now we don't have those conflicts or anything like that, and to
Mm-hmm.
interfere with it, and we can actually spend time focusing on our prayers, focusing on our faith and our duties that we need to do as a Muslim.
Mm-hmm.
Not just within ourselves, but within the community as well. So we've so in a way, it's a blessing in disguise that we're complaining about not being able to go out and in restaurants or whatever it is, but from a faith perspective, it's a blessing that we can now focus on what we truly need to focus on as being Muslims.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's been beneficial, I find. So you can focus more on your prayers and
Mm-hmm.
keep wanting to saying all these Arabic words. I'm trying to stop from doing that.
Well, you can, but we might ask for a translation.
Right, and I don't know the right translation, so
Okay.
so I'm trying to stop from saying it. But so yeah, and so drawbacks. Like you're saying, the community aspect, I think, has been a big drawback.
Mm-hmm.
Not being able to attend funerals, not being able to visit our sick relatives in the hospital or at home even.
Mm-hmm.
That's been difficult. I think that's pretty much across the board. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
but we've been able to get creative and work around it.
Yep. It's interesting to think if this had happened even 5 years ago, much less 10 years ago, we wouldn't have all this wonderful technology that's enabled us to stay as connected as we have.
Right.
But at the same time, I know it's been great to have fewer distractions, but then we have that technology that is probably the number one distraction.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting time for sure. And I know, Haroon, you talked a little bit about this earlier, but another point that I wanted to discuss was this idea of living our faith right now. And you talked about how you've been able to make meals and deliver them
Right.
for breaking the fast. And Cindy and Michelle, you both talked about gatherings before or after the worship part to check in with people. I know there are a lot of opportunities for service, and I know most faith communities focus a lot on service. And right now we're presented with many opportunities for service. What are ways that your different faith communities have been involved in service during this time and living their faith that way?
So one thing we've been doing consistently since we started the mosque about 3 years ago now is we've been participating with the Lazarus House in St. Charles.
Mm-hmm.
So every month we cook food for them, and we still continue to do that. We also started participating at the food bank in Geneva.
Mm-hmm.
I forgot the name of it, but we've done a couple of days there helping prepare packages. But just in general, we've put together some services where people can just call us, and if we have any any food available or if they need errands run, we can go and distribute it to people, regardless of faith or anything. So we've done quite a bit of that. We've helped some people who've lost their jobs with rent money as well. And then just wherever there's a need, we try to be there for them and help them.
That's great. Cindy?
So we've let our congregation know about different opportunities in the area for donating of food to, like at the Christ the King food pantry, which is very close to our congregation in Lombard. They let us know what it is that they were lacking and what they needed, and so we try to let the community know, well, this food pantry is looking for these items and this food pantry may be looking for those items, and try to direct people with the right things, to put the right things together with the right place, to make sure that we're giving what's needed and where it's needed. We also have asked people to plant gardens, to grow food, to be able to donate to these food banks and food pantries so that they can have some fresh homegrown produce. And we likened it to the Victory Gardens that were taking place during the Great Depression. And so our Rabbi Kaznowski, even volunteered to provide seeds for people, and so that they could get their own gardens growing, and then maybe donate the food that they've grown as well.
It's a great idea.
Yeah.
And we've also let people know about where they can go to donate blood. That we know that blood donations are really needed right now. And so we've sent out dates for the Heroes on Call blood drives so that people can know where they might be able to go to donate blood as well.
That's great.
We have tried to maintain as much as possible what we've been doing regularly. Like Haroon, we provide a meal for Lazarus House, and then we do a community dinner on the third Friday of every month. But we had to cancel the last one. We do it every other month, and so June 19th we'll go back into that and provide takeout meals for the community. We are always on the lookout for what's immediately evolving in our community that needs to be um, that needs addressing. So our senior pastor is connected with Mascot, Kane County, and so we as a congregation made a financial donation so that that could be to that project. Around the corner from our church is a nursing home, Bria, that had an outbreak, and it was devastating. So we provided a meal for their staff on Saturday, and then we, as three of our committees, are joining together to write cards to the residents because, in speaking with the administrator at that nursing facility, the the press has been really devastating for their morale. Um, but they've been doing the best they can, and they are confident that they have eliminated the virus in their facility. Obviously, like the surviving nursing home residents are in grief, so they could use some cards to give them a sense of joy. So we're trying to gather around 88 cards so that we can deliver that to that nursing home. We have also figured out that, how do we address the spirituality or spiritual needs within the community? So we've put up a prayer chain along the east side drive of our church, and it's open to everyone. There's a big sign out there saying, please join us in praying for the world during this time. So hopefully that symbolism can be give a sense to people that, we're all in this together, that we are all um, taking this day by day, so to speak. So yeah, we try not to forget that, especially as Presbyterians, we try not to forget that during times like these, what it reveals is the injustice that's always been there. And so how do we then answer those calls to stop or try to address those injustices that are always below the surface, and during times like these it just becomes more apparent. So that's what we're trying to do.
That's great. There are so many ways that we can all live our faith, even within our own neighborhoods during these times. Another, and I think the last discussion topic that I wanted to cover was the future impact on worship. And I know, Michelle, you talked a little bit about how when we do come back together, we're fairly certain that singing will not be a part of our worship, which is devastating to me. It's one of my favorite.
I know.
Worship.
It is hard.
Kids are in the choir and they love that as well. So that's a really hard thing to think about. But even in the coming months, do you see any evolution in the way your faith practice will play out, or do you see it staying the same for a certain period of time? And when we do come back together, what other ways do you think it might change? Haroon, how about
Sure.
for you guys?
Well, I mean, I think we're gonna. It'll add to the services that we offer. So I'm sure we'll still, once we can meet face to face again, we'll continue that. But I think we'll probably add on the fact that there'll be an online session as well that goes on with it for those who can't attend in person. So I think it's going to, if you think of it as an experiment, I guess, in how to use this technology, it's, we can take some positives from it and probably use it to augment whatever we're doing right now, what we were doing before. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Cindy, how about you guys?
Well, I asked Rabbi Koznowski about this, and she said that she's working together with the executive committee right now. They are starting discussions about what reopening would look like, though there's not a set plan in place right now. We will certainly follow the guidelines of the state and the governor's office about reopening and when it's safe and what is safe. She says we certainly don't want to be responsible for having a religious ceremony that could have a potential to spread the illness. So we have to tread, very carefully. So they don't have any plans to try to open anytime soon. But they're beginning the discussions, and we'll have to see what those would look like. I think that Judaism has long been a religion of adapting and continuing the revelation of Torah, or God's teaching for the people. And this is another step along that path. We have our basic fundamental values that we have to adhere to and want to continue to adhere to, communal responsibility and family-centeredness, commitment to education, and primarily preservation of life, because we say that if the Talmud says if you save one life, it's as if you have saved the whole world. And so that's very important, and we want to be a part of moving forward properly. And so we'll just have to see where we go from here. But certainly we're going to continue on the path that we have been, at least in the virtual world.
And Michelle?
So for the immediate future, like everyone else, I think we will be staying the course. And we have a task force in our church that is putting together step-by-step process of how we will reopen and what that would look like. I imagine, and nothing is firm, I imagine that at the beginning, it may be just the pastors who go back into the building and us streaming live and recording those services. And then slowly, what does that look like? Visit, every other pew, we have people sitting and cleaning up afterwards and having more services. I don't know, but we have a task force who's ready to look into all those possibilities. But again, nothing that would put anyone's health at risk.
And I think I was sharing with all of you beforehand, I had seen that the Archdiocese of Joliet has put together their plan for returning gradually, and they worked in tandem with people from the governor's office to come up with a plan that will work and keep people safe at the same time. So there are there's some precedent out there, some guidelines that are available for faith communities to look at to see what that, how that could play out for them as well. But it's definitely an interesting time to be a person of faith in this world, living through this pandemic together, but far apart, and finding new and creative ways to gather, to worship, and to continue living our faith.
Right.
And I really appreciate all of you joining me here and sharing your experiences with your faith communities and how all of this has played out for you. And I hope that it will give others some ideas, maybe inspiration for new and creative things that their faith communities can do, and also hope for what the future holds for all of us. Different though it might be, we're still in this together, and positive things can come from this. So
Right.
I appreciate all of you and hope that everyone out there is safe and healthy, and looking forward to a good week ahead.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.